what it did is it set me on a path of another layer of healing, which I didn't even anticipate. But the writing and setting the scenes, I had to go back. I had to keep going back. And then it was like, okay, I'm now the adult. I've done a lot of work on myself. I can now talk to that little girl, tell her I've got her, you're safe, and tell me what you really were feeling then, because I wouldn't speak up. I didn't share when I was 7 and a 17-year-old touched me inappropriately. I just tucked it in. And so now it's like, okay, how did you really feel? Let's get to what you really felt back then. When I was that age, it was just shut down. Just tuck it away and be done with it. But I want to say, no, don't do that. Find my voice. The healing was amazing that occurred through writing a memoir.
Welcome to the Persistence U podcast with Lizbeth. That's you as in university, but we're really much more of a community here. Lizbeth Meredith is an author, speaker, and online teacher. Each week, she'll be delivering amazing stories from survivors and strivers, all threaded together with a dose of persistence. We're so glad you're listening.
Her sisters and brothers, this is a real treat. I was approached by someone representing Stephanie Maley, the author who wrote No Longer That Girl, Retracing the Scars of the Past and Present. It turns out Stephanie is originally from Chattanooga, where I live presently. She doesn't live that far away in Georgia. And she is published by the same publisher that I originally had. She writes press for my memoir. This could be a very serious conversation. I know that her book touches on issues of sexual abuse and abandonment. So just trigger alert. She is going to get into some deep topics. Today, Stephanie's book, No Longer That Girl, Retracing the Scars of the Past and Present, will be published November 4th, 2025. That's the target date. And she will probably have pre-orders available sooner than later. So I hope to release this in time so that you can support Stephanie. This is the dream of her heart to get this done. Then I adore being any part of that. Thanks so much. And we will see you in a second with Stephanie. Stephanie Maley, it has been so much fun to meet you. I think we have so much in common. I mentioned to the listeners before that we had the same original publisher. There's a nursing nexus. I live in Chattanooga, where you're from. How fun is this? I am so excited to meet you.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is surely my delight. Can you please explain? I introduced your book, but tell me, let's start with the moment that you knew, because it's a very serious themes in here. Tell me the moment that you knew you needed to write about the things that happened in your life.
Well, I think when the Me Too movement came out and I started paying attention to that and hearing these other women share their stories, it took all that secrecy and shame wanted to kind of come out. I had shared with my husband when we first met, and we've been married for 35 years. He knew and he was so safe, but it just took hearing other women share their stories. I need to write mine. I need to get it out. I wake up and I have a great life, but I feel like a ball and chain. Sometimes it's dragging it around because it's in the past. And so I thought to myself, I need to go ahead and just get it out. It was around 2018 that I actually started the process.
Wow. I mean, that's big. Let the audience know that trigger warning, we're going to talk about serious things, but the things you're talking about, basically, there's abandonment, there's abuse, and there's sexual abuse.
Yes.
And, you and I discussed before we went on record, the difference between writing a biography or an autobiography and a memoir. I didn't know that difference. Yeah. So when I was a new writer, I thought that you just started like, okay, I was born on... And here was the first pet I can remember having. I had this many siblings, but it's not that. It's finding that moment in your life that changed everything, and the growth or the devolving of what happened after it. What was the pivotal moment for you in your personal growth?
I think the growth was when I finally recognize that my story is not that special, that it's very similar to other people's. When COVID came, what ended up happening for me is I had been a nurse and my husband's a pediatrician and we're in a small rural area. One day, I just sat on the couch and I thought, I'm going to die. I was in talk therapy and I had sent a text message saying, I just hope you'll be willing to do talk therapy without having to be face to face because I'm not comfortable with that. This was the beginning when all the Italian people were dying and warning us it's going to happen in 2 weeks. I thought, I'm not telling her really what's going on. I'm sure I'm going to die and I need to write my funeral plans. With COVID, recognizing that, it just brought all those vulnerabilities back. It just came rushing. There's this unknown virus. I am a retired nurse. I know how viruses spread. My husband is exposed every day with the children and their parents or their grandparents. It's a double whammy. So that was pivotal in 2 areas. First, it shut me down and it woke me up because then I had time. COVID gave me the time. Once I started feeling safe in my home, ironically, she said, I want you to talk to your asthma allergy doctor because I have asthma. So that was the other, I had a vulnerability. She said, I want you to talk to the CDC, see what they say. But in the meantime, I think you can have him put his clothes in the washing machine when he comes. He needs to wear a mask in the house. He needs to stay 6 feet away from you. And I kind of laughed. I'm like, I'm the nurse and you're the one telling me how to be safe. And so we did. I stayed online one day for an hour, 15 minutes for CDC. I was that desperate. And when I finally talked to a person, I'm like, we are a medical family. We're a little different. My husband could be exposed every day. What do we do? And she just read off what was online. It was such a disappointment. But anyway, that was the pivotal moment for me.
Like sitting in your own home, nowhere to go, and you can't outrun bad memories and trauma.
You can't. You think you can compartmentalize. They will come out. And mine came out really in force. And when that hit, I just knew I needed to write my funeral plans.
Which I think is a great idea. And in fact, I've thought about assigning that to my students in lifespan psychology. I've written my own, but I think there's something very freeing and smart about writing your funeral plans or your own obituary because it helps you know what you want to be remembered for. And if you haven't done some of those things,
right,
it's time to get on it. Was writing your story, was telling your story a part of your end of life plans if you were mentally thinking them out?
Well, in a way it was. I'll admit, I didn't write them, and I still do want to write them because it is smart. My mom did all of that, had it all taken care of, and I want to do the same. But what it did is it set me on a path of another layer of healing, which I didn't even anticipate. But the writing and setting the scenes, I had to go back. I had to keep going back. And then it was like, okay, I'm now the adult. I've done a lot of work on myself. I can now talk to that little girl, tell her I've got her, you're safe, and tell me what you really were feeling then, because I wouldn't speak up. I didn't share when I was 7 and a 17-year-old touched me inappropriately. I just tucked it in. And so now it's like, okay, how did you really feel? Let's get to what you really felt back then. When I was that age, it was just shut down. Just tuck it away and be done with it. But I want to say, no, don't do that. Find my, the healing was amazing that occurred through writing a memoir.
Also, to go back and afford yourself the time to ask what you were thinking. I think my generation, and maybe yours too, little girls were meant to be very pleasing. We knew where we stood in the family dynamic, and it wasn't to be the truth teller and share all very uncomfortable truths. It was mind your business, put on a smile, and hug this person, hug that person.
Especially in the South and the
Yes.
culture of the South, it's put other people's needs first, be very pleasing, people pleasing, and put the smile on. I finally said no more. All of those things that happened, the Me Too, and then 2 years later, COVID came, and I'm like, yeah, not going to be here longer, and now I have time. And now I feel safe. Now I can get to work.
Wow. So did you learn anything? Did you discover anything about yourself in the writing process?
I did. Actually, one of the biggest things that kept coming up for me was that so everybody was like, oh, you're such an extrovert and everything. What I recognized, a lot of what was behind that is that I was hustling for love. My birth father had left when I was 3 months old, and my brother was 2. He was finishing his residency in Chattanooga. And then he had an affair and took her to Sioux Falls and left my mom with 2 little children. My stepfather came in when I was 18 months old, but they didn't marry till I was in 2nd grade. And then they divorced when I was 15. So all of these things that there was a lot of chaos and attention somewhere else in the family. It was hard on my mom. She wanted my dad there, and they just didn't want the same thing. I was hustling for love. And when people don't abandon me, I'll be funny for you. I'll be loyal to you. I will do all of these things so that you'll love me and you won't leave me.
Wow. So a lot of abandonment, and then the side effect is you were performative so that someone would stay with you.
Right. Exactly. That was eye-opening. We talked about it some in therapy, but it showed up to me more. It was very apparent as I was writing about it. That's so interesting because now I feel like more of an introvert, and I have friends who will say that is so not true, but it really is. I like being by myself. I love being home, and I need time to recharge. I had a full weekend this weekend, and right after church, I'm like, I just need to go home.
I just had a couple of weeks ago, of course, it'll be longer by the time this airs. I had Lisa Ellison, who hosts classes on writing your resilience. One of the things we talked about is how powerful writing can be toward healing. Also, that it isn't always, that there are people, if they haven't processed what they've gone through, if they haven't had professional help, if they don't have group
Right.
support, if they don't feel safe with these memories, it's not good.
Mhm.
So it seemed like you really did a lot of work first
Yeah.
to make sure you were feeling very safe. And then you knew you had a story that people could relate to.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you hear the statistics. If I'm in a group of 3 other women, I'm always going to be the one who's had sexual abuse. But when I'm not in that group of 3 or 4 women, somebody else will be. It's that prominent.
Right.
Yeah, and Me Too really brought that out. I know there were some negative connotations with it, but what really resonated with me was how frequent, how often, and how many people. But the shame keeps us quiet.
Right. Right. The shame keeps us quiet. And I am concerned that so do a whole lot of people who want us to stay quiet. Whether sometimes it happens in faith communities, sometimes it happens with other men who may have had things in their lives, but it concerns me that I still see young women not able to share what happened to them and get support without being judged first. What were you wearing? What were you doing?
Right.
What was your part in this?
It's ridiculous. There's
Yeah.
no art in that.
Yes.
That was consensual, and we should be able to be whoever we are, and that does not invite anybody else to be inappropriate with us. My first experience was at the school. There used to be a school in Chattanooga called Missionary Ridge for the 17-year-old, but then it happened with men who groomed me when I was 14 and then 19. I didn't even know the word groom existed until I was writing the book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was looking on the internet and all these different common traits. I'm like, oh yeah, they did that too. Perfectly right down the line. It's like they all shared notes.
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting, but to realize that I wasn't the only one that went through that. I'm certainly not. But I have done the work. One of my priests, I'm an Episcopalian, I went in to talk to him about something, and he said, you know what? I think you need therapy. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? I'm just saying that this is going to happen if this happens. I'm just letting you know it'll be me. So it's not about that, Stephanie. It's something else, going on. And so he's like, I want you to start therapy. and family children's services. And I'm like, I can't afford therapy. You can afford her. It's sliding scale. So I paid $1 initially. I've had different ones throughout the years, but all through there, I learned something more about myself. So I'm comfortable in my skin now.
I think that's fantastic. And one of the most exciting things about sharing your story is going to be that it emboldens so many other people to unburden themselves and be able to talk about their experiences.
When you haven't addressed your past, it will come out somewhere else. If you can deal with that past and comfort that part of you, that little girl or little boy, that you can comfort them and know, I've got you and I will always have you now. And I'm sorry that happened, but we're going to move forward. Then you can really live in the present, and you're not dragging that with you, because that's what, it really felt like a ball and chain. Every day I wake up, I have a wonderful husband, a wonderful house. I'm safe. I have 2 wonderful sons. Why do I feel this way? And then that is pretty much freed up. That's amazing. Imagine if that could go away, because it's been like that for years.
And speaks to the resilience and neuroplasticity that you are making new connections, maybe seeing yourself differently as you write your book. If you felt victimized before, you understand that you are a survivor. And that is so exciting.
If you live in, because I definitely lived as a victim many times. I had health issues that hit me when I was very young as well that were very unusual. I had double pneumonia in both of my lungs, and I had to live in an oxygen tent for a couple of weeks. But then a year after that, I had a breast tumor, and I was 12, and I hadn't developed, but it was big, and I wouldn't tell anybody because I didn't want to go back to the hospital. And it grew so quickly that became its own trauma. And anyway, and then it came back 10 months later. And then MD Anderson in Houston says, we need to do a mastectomy. I'm 13 now. So luckily my surgeon didn't and just took out more tissue and did it again. I had all those opportunities to stay a victim. But when you stay in that place, there's no room for growth, in my opinion. If you stay in victimhood, you can't move forward, because everything, you feel like everything's happening to me. And it does feel like that. It certainly does feel like it. And you can move through that, and you can get empowered, and you can rise from that and do something about it.
Wonderful message. So tell us the name of your book again. I did share it earlier, but it's important. I love the title. Did you come up with it yourself?
I did. I had actually Not That Girl. And then my publishing team said that's too common, so they changed it to No Longer. But it's no longer That Girl, and this is what it looks like. This is my part.
Love it.
The girl retracing the scars of the past and present.
That is so fantastic. That is a great title, and I think it accurately reflects what you're really talking about. Maybe there was a time where you were that girl. You felt like a victim, but you are no longer that girl. And it is okay to retrace the scars of past and present. So fantastic. I'm so excited. November 4th is your official release date. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are you? That is so exciting. I can't believe how wonderful that is. And you're doing your pre-work already by doing some podcasts.
Thank you. I've watched your story. You've really gone through a lot as well. I feel very comfortable, being with you, because you can come through stuff too.
Well, I can't wait for us to meet in person. I think it'll happen. I'm really excited, and I will hope to hit one of your many events for your launch in November. That's going to be right here in Chattanooga. And that is so excellent. I need to follow you on social so that I can share that when the time comes. Congratulations. Congratulations on not giving up on you and having this beautiful offering to the world as a result, in addition to a peaceful life.
Thank you.
Where is your website? Where can people connect with you?
Well, you can go to www.stephmaley.com, and you can pre-order my book at any bookstore. I will be in Chattanooga for a panel of 3 other women. We've all written different genres, and we're going to be at the Book and Cover in Chattanooga on November 15th at 7.
So I think that is so fantastic. And for people who want to know how to spell Maley, if they're not on YouTube, Maley is Maley. Thank you so much for being here. I'm
Thank you.
really excited for this connection.
I've enjoyed this so much. I appreciate it.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's show. Thank you so much for listening. Now, to find out more, head on over to lameredith.com and be sure to hop on the mailing list too. If you've enjoyed this show, please leave a rating and review or share with a friend. And if you really, really liked it, go ahead and subscribe so that you never miss another episode. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Persistence U with Lizbeth.